Greetings, dear friends. We are sincerely glad to welcome you again. And today, we are going to talk to the esteemed Igor Mikhailovich Danilov.
Hello.
Igor Mikhailovich, I was deeply touched by the conference Global Crisis, the Ummah of the Prophet Muhammad. And you know, for me, it's a true catharsis of true Muslims, because the whole conference is imbued with this spirit of honesty,
Right.
truthfulness, responsibility, love for Allah, and devotion to the Prophet. And you know, very important questions have been raised, acute questions about why, as of today, the Ummah hasn't become united, why the hearts of people who call themselves Muslims do not beat in unison with the Prophet, and why Muslims haven't continued the work that the Prophet started. After all, if they had continued what the Prophet started, if they had developed those pillars that he laid, we would all have long been living in a beautiful world, in a different society, the creative society, in a world where love and brotherhood reign, where people care for others, where science serves for the benefit of all people, and where people develop their talents. But unfortunately, today we live in a different world. And you know, on the one hand, there is an understanding that there is still a chance, while on the other hand, listening even to those Muslims who spoke at the conference, there is an understanding that they are looking at this picture with deep realism. From the inside, they see what is happening in this world. They see that state of disunity which exists in the Ummah, and even they themselves find it hard to believe that Muslims will actually be able to come together and become one united Ummah. I cannot but rejoice that they have chosen this firm position for themselves to be faithful to the Prophet. Those Muslims who are building the creative society have declared at the conference that they will continue the Prophet's cause, that they will build the creative society, that they will do their best to awaken people and to ensure that the constitution of the Prophet Muhammad is implemented all over the world. Igor Mikhailovich, it is very important to hear your opinion too, as to whether Muslims from across the world will be able to come together and become one united Ummah, the Ummah of the Prophet. Will they be able to save and change this world? After all, the Prophet hoped so much for the last ones.
You see, I'm looking at this a little bit differently. Let me explain, friends. The thing is that God is one. He is really one. And it doesn't matter whether people are Christians or Muslims. While we are dividing again, you see, and again, one God and the Prophet who came to all of humanity. We sort of give it all away to Muslims. Whereas we, being Christians, kind of stay with Jesus Christ. But who is Jesus Christ? A simple question.
God's messenger, right?
God's messenger. Well, some people consider him the Son of God. Others consider him a prophet. Believe me, friends, it doesn't matter and doesn't play any role. The most important thing is that he is a true messenger of God. And what he brought here came from God himself. The same is true for the last prophet, and he is indeed the last prophet and the best of people, the Prophet Muhammad. He is God's messenger. God is one. The same regarding other religions. All religions that were built on the knowledge and brought here from God himself by the prophets. All prophets came from one God, and the knowledge was absolutely identical, yes, depending, let's say, on the place where a prophet himself lived. Their customs and traditions, the same information, was presented with specific accents a little bit, but the essence of the knowledge is the same. Jesus Christ spoke of what the world should be like, too, right? And if people had listened to Jesus Christ, the creative society would have been even earlier. If they had listened to the Prophet Muhammad, the creative society would have been built long ago. But all of us, actually all of us, friends, have this Nazism and division rooted so deep inside. We divide people by language, we divide by skin color, we divide by religion, and so on. Who benefits from this except for Shaitan? People? No, they don't. The few who perhaps achieve something in terms of the consumerist format in this world, they temporarily get to the top of the power ladder. But this lasts for a very short time. It is extremely disadvantageous for them too. Believe me, along with power and money, they get a lot of problems. They lose themselves and their quiet way of life. And it is really so. Well, in order to enjoy power a little bit, which is limited anyway, there is no one who has immeasurable power here. Even Shaitan doesn't have it. This is indeed true, you see? And all these divisions and attributions, will Muslims be able to unite? Why are we talking only about Muslims? What about us as the entire humanity? Will we really be able to unite and build the creative society? After all, any sensible person now understands the threat of climate is more acute than ever. And in reality, the fact that, 2 major earthquakes happened in a span of 3 months. Thank God. The second one, which was not so long ago, was without much damage. But just imagine if this powerful earthquake had happened in a densely populated area. What would have happened?
The situation would have repeated itself,
The
yes.
same thing that happened in Turkey, in Syria. It is really so. What does it mean? That the time is shrinking. The Cerberus is growing. And we as humanity have much bigger problems than our ambitions, than our Nazism or fascism. And we are really all infected with Nazism and fascism. Why? Because our traditions are ours. Our nation is ours. Listen to anyone, to any nation, no matter which one we take. Everything originated from them, and they rule everything. You see? I'll put it this way. When a person has actually nothing to be proud of, when there is nothing that is worthy of respect, they begin to be proud of anything whatsoever. Some people will say, but what about our achievements? The whole humankind descended from us. We are the ones, who dug the ocean, right? It's like some nation is accused of having dug the sea, while there are those who dug the ocean. And they say that everything originated from them. It's the same as being proud of some of your relatives who lived God knows when. I descend from such a family. I had such relatives. Well, so what? It doesn't matter who you had. It matters who you are, my friend, who you will be, and whether your grandchildren will be proud of you. And now, I am posing the question even more acutely, which is really so. Will your grandchildren exist at all? If you are still young enough and don't have any yet, a simple question. Why? Because the Cerberus has already come. If we used to say, the Cerberus is on the doorstep, in recent months, the Cerberus is not just in our backyard. It's not just that, but it has already entered our homes. This is indeed true. And it has already grown so much that, for smart people, 2 major earthquakes within 3 months is a lot more serious than it seems. Such earthquakes used to occur at huge time intervals. It means the time is compressing and the problems are escalating. We have only taken it as far as earthquakes are concerned, but how many other things are happening in the meantime? How many problems have actually occurred within these 3 months? You have to be a completely blind and irresponsible person not to see what is happening. I don't want to accuse anyone. Those who are supposed to be responsible for this have no solution. They do not hear us. They just do not hear us physically. Why? Our information is not reported to them, and if it is reported, then only in a negative way, because that's their policy, you see? And no one is taking it seriously yet. They will. We said it. They will listen. They will have no other choice. The time will come. But the question is, if we lose the time, we won't be able to solve anything. We won't be able to stop the Cerberus. And now the issue is much more acute than just uniting the Ummah. It is the unification of all humanity. Well, since there is a question, I will answer regarding the Ummah as well. Do I believe that the Ummah is capable of uniting? My friends, I do, absolutely, and I am sure that all of them will be able to unite, but only in the creative society. Why did the Prophet, the best of men, the Prophet Muhammad, why did he build as an example?
The Medina Charter.
Absolutely right. That prototype of the creative society was actually an example for everyone of how we should live, but we didn't support it. And what does this have to do with Muslims? A simple question. After all, everybody lived there. There were a lot of nationalities there.
Right.
Jews too, and many others. They were people professing different religions, but they lived the way people should live in the creative society, right?
Right.
It was actually a vivid example to everyone that it is possible to live like that. However, some people thought it wasn't good, right? It is necessary to govern, rule, and so on. And how can we be without Nazism? How will we set people against each other in order to manipulate them later on? Well, excuse me, this is a consumerist format. It's true. Look at what is going on around us. I don't even want to comment on it. I mean, in terms of politics, geopolitics, finance, and common human relationships. I don't even want to talk about it. Everybody sees and understands everything. Does it really resonate with normal, let's say, human existence? There is no other way to call it. No, it doesn't resonate at all. What is now being imposed on us, it all contradicts even common sense. And we are being told that this is normal and good in relation to eating and many other things.
You know, Igor Mikhailovich, you've said very important words that if a person divides, he doesn't believe in one God.
Of course, he doesn't. Because, pardon me, if a person rejects another person on any grounds, be it nationality or language, let alone religion, then he doesn't believe in God. Why? God is one, and this world must belong to him. How come Christians reject Muslims? Or Muslims reject Christians? Well, they do not completely reject, but they say, this is your God, that is ours. What does your God and our God mean? God is one for everyone, and all the messengers came. Yes, one came to one part of the world, another came to another part of the world. But who did they come to? One came to the Jews, another one to the Arabs, and all the others should go fly a kite, right?
Yes.
Or where the girl at the forum sent her father, remember? Because of taxes.
Well, yes, it's just that when people say, this is your God, this is our God, in fact, it's a manifestation of polytheism in the world.
Of course, this is exactly a manifestation of the fact that a person actually serves shaitan. He doesn't believe in God. He doesn't believe in his prophet. He doesn't believe in anything at all. The only thing he believes in is adapt or die, right? In this world. And he is ruled by these very mindsets that predominate all over the world today and in people's minds. When we belittle someone for speaking a different language, don't you guys find it ridiculous? In general, I will say, there should be one language all over the world, one language, and it should be the richest language, so that we could express all the feelings in it, describe all the beauty of our world. It should be a good, rich, colorful, and deep language, and it should be common for the whole world. But that doesn't mean that we should forget our languages. No. We should communicate in our own language and remember it, but keeping all documentation, let's say, mainstream news channels and everything else should all be in one language all over the world. There should be a language that unites all of us. But we shouldn't forget our national languages. This is our history. Our grandfathers and great-grandfathers spoke our language. How can we forget it? Just like, excuse me, our culture, traditions, and customs. They cannot be taken away. They are a part, an integral part of our life. If we remove them from our life, we will lose a whole lot. This is...
Of course, they actually existed in many nations even before those religions.
Of course.
And became part of culture as well.
Well, again, let's consider why Islam quickly became divided, right? We are not taking Umar with his striving for power. I'll put it carefully. But again, there were several cultures, several traditions, and this also contributed to the division of people. However, I would say a little phenomenon played a role there, right? I mean, several nations were united on one religion because it already started to be established as a religion. If, in the times of the Prophet, it was the knowledge, it was, well, it was more life than a religion. I mean, something that was even above religion. Then afterwards, it instantly became a religion, that is, a controlled organization and the like. And naturally, since there began a contradiction against the Prophet himself, well, people were not stupid, they saw everything. So they understood that it was necessary to adapt. So everyone just chose their own traditions and began to assert them. What is in your tradition is unacceptable for us, and what is in our tradition is unacceptable for you. Why? We have different traditions, different customs. Our great-grandfathers lived like that, and so the division began. Can this really be a stumbling block and a division of us as people who strive for a better life, as people who love God? Can our traditions hinder our love for God? You mustn't impose on a person how he should walk and what language he should speak. You mustn't. That's for sure. But there has to be something that unites us. Again, the first thing that should unite us is respect for each other, right?
Yes, right.
The Prophet himself taught that. He had respect and a wonderful attitude even towards his enemies. He had mercy on people. He didn't start wars. Yes, he defended himself. There was such a thing, but after him,
There were no invasive wars, right?
Umar started a lot of wars. Again, why? Because power fell into his hands. And let's look again. Today, we are discussing Islam. These are elementary, simple things. What the Prophet abolished was later restored by Umar. The Prophet Muhammad abolished Taraweeh.
Yes.
Why? Already in his time, people started paying a lot of attention to external actions, while the way to God, to Allah, is through the heart. Your external actions are not important. Yes, they should be cultural and normal. They should be, let's say, such as not to offend other people, not to hinder other people in the first place. As for everything else, those theatrical performances, they are totally meaningless on the spiritual path. And the Prophet canceled a lot of things.
Right.
Why? Because people began, let's say, to pay a lot of attention to outer actions and move away from the inner work. After all, the way to Allah lies first and foremost through love, through the heart, and not through the action we perform. And we have to perform it thoroughly, right? While Umar introduced that, why did he introduce many different traditions? We won't enumerate them. There are indeed many of them, and they are all external, because he didn't have an inner experience. The Prophet, you see, he was a perfect fruit who had something to share. He had the Holy Spirit in him, and he could share it to infinity with anyone. He had the love of Allah in him, which is boundless, and he could share with anyone that love, let's say, that state, as well as the understanding of God and the way to Him. Yet, could an ordinary, earthly man who craved power and riches share what the Prophet had? Of course not. An empty bucket doesn't give water. Here's a simple example. But at the same time, he took power. He was looked up to as a follower, and he had to teach people something. Well, naturally, what came to his mind from Shaitan is what he shared. He couldn't give the inner, but he gave the outer. What did this also lead to? To division and a massive problems. Anyway, people felt understood and knew. But again, let's take a simple example. When 70,000 people swore allegiance to the Prophet himself, he asked them several times, and they affirmed, but he knew perfectly well that most of them would betray him. Imagine what it felt like for the Prophet himself. But at the same time, did he discriminate against them for that? No. He was trying to put them on the right path and said, don't do anything foolish if you swear. Fulfill it, right?
Igor Mikhailovich, why is it easier for people to accept Umar rather than the Prophet? Why do they so often stand up for Umar?
And they will continue to stand up for him. Why? Because Umar lives in everyone. Umar is very close to a human in terms of mind. His reasoning is understandable. He gives an example to follow. To follow in what way? That person must be brave, tough, seek power. You see? Be unprincipled. You know, firm. Such a manly man, you know?
Yes.
And he must take what he wants. You see?
Seize.
Certainly.
Here are those wars of conquest. Here is this aggressive character.
Of course. Yes. And to this day, many people, being in Islam and not understanding its essence, follow this easy path imposed or whispered by shaitan. Why? Because it is very simple. It resonates with a person who lives and is immersed in the consumerist format. Because he wants wealth. He wants power. Exactly what Umar wants. We are ordinary people. You should understand this, and since we are ordinary people, we want ordinary things. Umar was a person who was just like you and who wanted the same things. For understanding, I'll put it simply. The human heart resonates with the Prophet Muhammad, the best of people, while the human mind resonates with Umar. And it can forgive him any deeds. Why? Because by forgiving him, we forgive ourselves. And that's the deep meaning of our degradation as humanity.
We defend our vices.
100%. We defend ourselves, first and foremost. Also, why do many people just not perceive the Prophet? And I'll tell you even more. They are jealous of the Prophet, envious of the Prophet, and resentful of the Prophet. This is among Muslims, and they don't admit it. But this is true. It can be seen in your hearts, friends. Why is it seen? And why is it happening? Because many are offended and jealous and think it's unfair. The fact that Allah sent Jibril to the Prophet Muhammad, but He didn't send him to them. This is a stumbling block for many people. But who said that Allah hasn't sent Jibril to you? He has, but do you see him? No. Everything that you perceive by means of a picture in your mind. As for the one whom Allah has sent to you, you should have seen him with your heart and accepted him. However, Shaitan closes your eyes and puts your heart to sleep. That's why you don't see him. And that is why a common, ordinary man with simple, natural vices, like everyone else has, is much closer to people. And there's one more thing, which is also important. Following the Prophet is like climbing a mountain. Imagine, you live in the middle of a mountain. Following a person, let's say, who is seduced by shaitan, is like rolling down a mountain, and at the same time, getting a lot of illusions, benefits, or whatever. It's easy. So you set out, and you have two ways to go with the hope of salvation, together with a person who is supposedly talking about the same things, right? Well, the Prophet also said many interesting things, and Umar said many interesting things, repeating after the Prophet, just inserting his own clarifications, right? But the Prophet loved, and there was life in him. There was something in the Prophet that he shared with those who accepted it. As for that other man, he additionally shared money and power. Tempting? Yes. Such temptations on the short path of life. So people rolled downhill, and to this day they are still rolling down. Whereas if you follow the Prophet instead of temptations, soft beds, tinkling brass in your pocket, or even gold, whatever, you will only have sharp ledges, bloody fingers, and curses from those who are falling down. Do we have many heroes? Here's your answer. Plain and simple. Why it is easier to follow Umar than to follow the Prophet. And this doesn't only apply to Islam, it applies to other religions as well. The exact same situation was everywhere, everything, repeated identically. That's why the world is like this. But everything comes to an end, and this fabulous consumerist format is also coming to an end. What it will be like depends on us, on people. What we choose is what will be. If we have the courage to face the truth with an open heart and change everything for the better, then there will be a beautiful and happy world. That world in which the entire Ummah will unite. This is really so. Do you know why, friends? Because there will be no power, no money, and all the people like Umar will just step aside. they will have nothing to do there. In the Ummah, there will remain those who really love Allah and are faithful to the Prophet. Only those will remain who will never in their lives go against the Prophet. Why? Going against the Prophet means going against Allah, which means following shaitan. And this applies not only to Islam, it also applies to Christianity and other religions. This is the only scenario when we will all be able to unite in one civilization, and where there will be no evil. It will simply not exist, because we will eradicate it, because we are people and we want to live in a happy and wonderful future, and we can build it now. Or there's the second scenario, which is absolutely fair. And this second scenario was also predicted for us by the greatest of men, the Prophet Muhammad. He said, it will be either this or that way. And look how merciful God actually is, and how much He loves us, and how much the Prophet believed in us, even knowing what was going to happen to Islam and to him. He even knew what was going to happen to his beloved daughter Fatima, to his unborn grandson. And he told her about that. He knew that Umar would kill her. And nevertheless, the Prophet remained the Prophet. And he hoped for the last ones. He hoped for the people, those who live nowadays. It means there is a chance. If the Prophet was not disappointed in us, why should we get disappointed and give up before some Cerberus? But on the other hand, if there is not enough God's love in us, if there is not enough humaneness in us, then what will happen? And the Prophet Muhammad spoke about it too. Is fair. The choice is up to us. Therefore, friends, we need to sow as much love as we can in this world, and everything will be all right, and we shouldn't give up. And if you have a sapling in your hands, even if the world is falling apart and you have the last moment left, plant it, and everything will be all right. I'll say this, even if the world is falling apart, while you can still smile at someone and share your love, share it, and everything will be all right. So friends, let's just love each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, friends. Peace be with you.